This video means a lot to me. Exactly 12 days ago, on this very same day that this video is going to be released, which is the 8th of December, my mother brought me to a card shop in the middle of town. It's a card shop that I had gone to for many times since I was a kid, and I already known about Vanguard. Been playing it for about a year or two since it started in 2011, right? But at the time, because I was still pretty young and the internet wasn't really as advanced as it was, at least in my area, I didn't really know much about like set releases or like how card reviews work. We never had such well documented streams or like reveals and stuff. We only had like Cardfight Weekend, and even like, when we watched like Vanguard episodes, the subs would always come from like YouTube rips with like the red colored text and all that, with bad translations and even wrong skills. And yeah, it was kind of a really wacky time. But that day when I walked in, I learned that they released a new set called BTO9, Clash of the Knights and Dragons. And I found out that they released support for two of my favorite decks at that time, Ezel and Vermillion. And exactly on that year, on that very same day, one of them got support that would scar me for the rest of my life. Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm irrelevancy here. Today I am back to cover Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion, the blood in DivineZ. And ever since that day I filmed that Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion video back in 2023 for Standard, I knew this day would come. I knew this day would come. But yet, with this day here, it is a very bittersweet feeling. Of course, I'm very excited to have the blood. I think this is the one thing that we've all been waiting for over a year now, right? I think this was an inevitability, but knowing that we're not getting Platina Ezel in a very long time more, and seeing the current state of the support for Narukami, very frankly, I can't help but feel disappointed. Just before I move on, I do want to just quickly announce in the links in the description below for my Ezel video, right? So a lot of you may be wondering, oh, will I cover Ezel this set? The answer is yes, and the video is actually already made. It's in the links in the description. So I know a lot of you are fans of Asia Circuit if you are watching this, so I just want you to know that you can take a look in the links in the description for the Ezel video updated for its latest support. It would really help me out if that video does well as well. But of course, today you are here for the main attraction, which is the blood. I'm releasing this video a few days after the DZ BTO6 release, so that I can coincide on the 12th anniversary of BTO9, Clash of the Knights and Dragons. Okay, so now that I've gotten all the admin out of the way, let's get talking about this deck. I think first and foremost I want to talk about the premise of the blood. I think right now there are two main ways for you to play the blood. You can either play the blood in the right deck or in the main deck. If you play it in the right deck, you also need to play additional copies of Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion in the main deck to support it, and you will also need to play support like Bellicosity Dragon, because it is a generic. You are actually going to need to pick up Bellicosity Dragon if you want to play Vermillion in the main deck. But my issue with that idea is that it's very bricky. It feels like V the Blood, which is not exactly a compliment for those of you who know, and I will link the V the Blood video links in the description just so we are also all caught up to speed, right? Because I know some of you will be wondering, oh, what was this deck like before? And I'll put the links in the description just so you can take a look when I make comparisons. I personally will be doing this deck profile with Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion in the right deck, and then we will naturally cross-right as God intended. Again, because this is a set with very little WGP results that will come out, and only the ultimate on 28 December, if I'm not mistaken, there's not going to be a lot of lists besides local tops, and I believe that for this set to really prosper, all of us as players are going to need to sit down and test. So again, while this video is my initial Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion the Blood deck after the week plus of testing since the review stream last Thursday, it is still subject to change, and there is still room for improvement. But again, this is my findings that I've done. I didn't want to do an immediate knee-jerk reaction of, guys, here's my immediate list, watch this, because frankly, I just don't think those videos are productive. Neither would a new stream where I tell you what the card does and doesn't do. I think that's really freaking useless. But instead, I wanted to really talk about these cards in context of actual testing and trying it against not only the decks of this meta, but of the meta we live in, right? Stuff like Rezael, Levitras, Odium, Varga, the annoying people, basically. So with that all out of the way, I feel that I've done enough to cover the premise. Now I can talk about the deck and its support proper. So again, just before I cover this, just so you know, that is how this video will be done. If you want to see the blood in the right deck, you know, and all that kind of stuff, this is not the video for you. I'm very sorry. I don't think that is the current strategy that Vermillion can go for right now. And I'll explain it first with the right deck. The right deck, and of course, energy. Energy, I've already covered this to, you know, no end. If you want to know more about the right deck and the energy in terms of the previous support for DivineZ Vermillion, please also check out the previous Vermillion deck profile link in the description, because in that video I really cover how Spark Spike works alongside the energy, and I think that would be a very good basis for you to understand how Vermillion has evolved from then till now. The right deck is exactly the same with Sparky Dragoon, Red River Dragoon, Thunderstorm Dragoon, and Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion. If this Vermillion looks different to you, it is the Vanguard 0 edition. I finally got it. I finally got it. So of course, the reason why we play Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion regular in the right deck is because I still believe Vermillion is a very deadly boss, especially going first. His first skill is Counter Blast 1. Choose 2 of your Narukami units and they gain 5000 power. When his unit attacks, it chooses 2 of your opponent's rearguards to battle alongside the opponent's Vanguard. And at the end of battle, this unit attacks. If you played a normal order this turn, choose a card from your hand, discard it. If you do, if your opponent's at 4 or less damage, you can deal them a damage point directly. These skills, in my opinion, still age very well today. Even though some people say my videos don't age well, I read your comments, you know. But the difference between playing the blood in the right deck and having Vermillion as a first right is that for the blood, you actually, you know, only get the skill that if Vermillion's in the soul, then this unit gains 5000 power, and if your opponent's great tree or greater, then it gets a crit and gives the front row 5k. Which is really slow, because if you want to play the blood in the right deck, you know, that's kind of just playing blind going second. You're not Graham Grace, so you don't get an additional 4 crits to beat your opponent to death. Neither are you the fabled Dragonic Overlord, where you can just run Havoc Supreme and cut his neck as many times as possible. In either cases though, you don't want to play inferior versions of decks that already exist, because why would you? So I really feel capitalizing on Vermillion skills are important, because the plus 5k gives you a lot of magic number intervals to hop over, especially going first. So Vermillion, as I've always said, is very good as a boss monster because it's really designed going first to really beat and destroy. So them printing the blood and having all of his skills locked to your opponent being great or greater is kind of a sign to me that I just don't think this is the way to go. I know a lot of people, and even the official video will tell you, oh, you need to ride the blood and slide Vermillion soul. But if you have so much space to play the extra main deck Vermillions and your Bellicosity and your Kashin and your all your other soul support, I just don't think this deck is going to be very coherent. At least from my testing, it ended up being very asthmatic in the sense that, you know, it's very piece reliant and the deck couldn't plus very well. But instead, I wanted to really focus on what Narukami is born to do: aggression. And with aggression, you know, then the numbers become second place. You want to deal damage first and then focus on the numbers later, so you can combo off. Also, for Vermillion's skill for the blood to deal damage, it is also the exact same skill. So frankly, you're not really missing out on anything. And the Soul Blast skill for Vermillion to attack 2 of your opponent's rearguards alongside the Vanguard doesn't give you power. It doesn't give you power at all as compared to the original one where you will always get power. This one doesn't. Again, I'll talk about it when we reach the grade 3s, which will be right now. Our grade 3s, we play 1 copy of Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion in the right deck. As I previously mentioned, he's still there. So if you forgot, then you know, you might want to scroll backwards just a little bit following the timestamps. And for the rest of our grade 3s, we obviously play 4 copies of Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion, the blood. We play 4 copies of Eternal Thunderbolt, and then we play 4 copies of Wrathcowl, Hammer and Dragon. In this list, as you can see below, we already have a total of 12 grade 3s. If we were to try the Vermillion strategy with the main deck, we would need to go up to a total of 15, or I think 16 grade 3s. which is very, very bricky. And in a format where people like Reza exist, you really can't afford that many great trees in hand. You just won't live, right? So I've already covered Vermillion. Now I will cover the rest of the deck first before the Blood. So of course we still play 4 copies of Eternal Thunderbolt. People who tell you to play less than 4 copies generally either have never played this deck before or just generally should not be allowed to deck build, because this thing is the main heart of Vermillion. If you do not play a normal order, you can't get most of your effects. So it really puzzles me how people can in good faith tell you, oh, just play less than 3. I don't know, man. The skill is that you can play it when you have a Narukami Vanguard that has Vermillion in its name, and it can be played from the drop zone. If you play it from the drop zone, you have to bind it. Your Vermillion Vanguard gains 2 new effects. 1, if your opponent has no rear guards, all of your front row rear guards gain additional 5,000 power. 2, when Vermillion battles any unit, the unit that is retired by his battle is bound instead. Now, I know this card has a huge problem with ladder, wherein if ladder is in play, then Vermillion Thunderbolt becomes very redundant. In that case, then just don't be an idiot. Don't play Bolt into an active ladder board. Just take the turn to play a bit slower. You won't lose any tempo, I can promise you that. The only thing that Thunderbolt really enables you to do is A, the bind through hard removal, and B, to give both Vermillion and Vermillion the Blood their damage ping skills, because like I said, it's exactly the same. You just need to play an order this turn for you to get that skill. If you just don't play the order, you just don't get the strike skill, but who really cares? Like, if they're playing ladder, it clearly means they're trying to stall you out. You too can play the stall game. And remember, a lot of your main supports that require you to battle, like Spark Spike, only need you to have attacks that hit, not attacks that bind. Again, these are all very technical things that you would know when you play the deck. That there's a lot of difference between the skills that are involved in this deck, and that's really why you need to know when to play this. However, I cannot stress enough that this is an absolute fall-off in the deck, because you just need it to be played as much as possible besides the ladder interaction, which some people do get wrong, so I do want to talk about it in this video. So again, if you see any lists that tell you to play less than 3 Bolt with Vermillion, because I've seen them online, even the official Bushiroad list, it's wrong. I'm sorry, I have to be straight and blunt, it's just not good. It is encouraging you to actively play into a design space that you are not fulfilling. You are not playing the order, which means you're going to lose, because you don't get the shit done. Speaking of people who need you to play orders in this deck, is going to be the main beatstick and star of this deck, Ravkal Hammer Dragon. If you asked me a year ago what I thought of Ravkal, I would say I want to pee on this card and make sure my pee was about 80 degrees Celsius so that I could melt a hole in this card. But right now though, I am completely swapped on Ravkal. Ever since my previous WGPs when I played him and combo Vermillion, till now sadly, because the current support just doesn't live up to the name, Ravkal actually has taken on a starring role. Here's why. The first skill is when this unit attacks, if you have a Vanguard with Narukami and has Vermillion in its name, if you play normal all this turn, it gains 5,000 power, and in a battle, Card Blast 1, bind this unit, draw a card. So by itself it's an 18k beater, and for Card Blast 1, you bind this unit to draw 1. The bind matters because it times it with the same time as Rising Phoenix, which if you know anything about Narukami, that's just kind of how things go nowadays. The other skill is the more important one, which is that when you play a normal order, if you have a Vanguard with Narukami and Vermillion, and you do not have a Ravkal Hammer Dragon on your rearguard circles, you can call this to the rearguard from the bind zone. So what happens is you pay 1 counterblast when he attacks, you bind him, and then when you play an order, he comes back. Of course, having multiple copies of Ravkal makes no sense, and that's probably why some people will be wondering why I even play 4. But that's because Ravkal is so important to Vermillion right now that you need to play it at 4. You absolutely need to see this guy on turn 3, if not you just lose the game. I'm sorry, again, this is another one of the must draws you need. Why is that so? Ravkal is the only way Vermillion escapes control matchups. A lot of the time where if your boards evade, you can just survive a lot of the control, and Ravkal is unironically good evasion. Although, it's not really, but it does count. It gives you a net 0 draw 1, and it plays you at 1 counterblast. Counterblast is a resource that this deck has a lot. Now that you're no longer on Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion for more than a turn, and the Blood actively uses Soul Blast every turn to survive, you can now spend a lot of your counterblast spamming Ravkal between multiple turns. Which is strange, because that's what the deck seems to promote. So nowadays, you can just keep using Ravkal every turn no matter what, and that will encourage you to just survive and beat down with a 18k beta minimum, who is eligible to a lot of power buffs through Spark Spy, Vermillion, hell, even Thunderbolt, all will give him enough power to beat down. So Ravkal, although in the past I used to be very critical about him, right now more than ever he is very important to the deck. So I would almost say he's at a 4 off. I think there is a possibility for you to play that 3, but anything less than that is absolutely a mistake in my opinion, because this guy's card draw is too important. Vermillion has too many cards that don't draw, which is a shame. So I feel that with Ravkal, you really need him to cover your back in terms of card advantage. And of course, the star of the show is Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion, the Blood. I needed to talk about these two first because they really form the foundation on which you understand the Blood. Especially for the people who have never watched my previous Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion videos, you can tell that I'm really trying to show you a certain aspect of the deck that for some reason nobody seems to be talking about. Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion, the Blood. As long as during your turn you have a Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion in the soul, this unit will gain 5000 power. If your opponent's grade 3 or greater, this unit gains an additional critical, and all of your front row units, rearguards, gain 5. So it really is meant to simulate the original Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion, the Blood, back from 2012, which I do appreciate with the crit, but I feel like now more than ever, the crit's really more of a gimmick. For Phantom Blaster Overlord, links in the description for that video. I'll put the PBO DivineZ video in there. It was my first video, my first ever video for DivineZ, so you know, check that out for free. But like for PBO's crit, it came no matter what. As long as you just put Vermillion into the right deck, it generally made it very worthwhile to attack with a 2-crit Vanguard. But for the Blood, they just didn't give that skill. And they had to lock it to go in second. I don't know why. But to me, that indicates to me that they didn't want you to go first with the Blood. But again, that's just how I read it. The second skill for Vermillion, as I said before, is Soul Blast 1. When the Blood battles, he can choose 2 of your opponent's Rearguards alongside the Vanguard for his attack. Again, this is a 1-to-1 remake of the Be the Blood skill. But the only difference is that his costs a Counter Blast and gives 5k power, his is a Soul Blast, and then that's it. So I don't know why they chose to give another Soul Blast skill to a deck that has so much Soul Blast already, but like, sure I guess. The last skill is the exact same 1-for-1 skill. It's word to word of the exact deal damage skill, so I won't repeat that. So basically you just take this exact clause and print it here, and that's literally it. The Blood is an improvement over Vermillion in the sense that right now you have an extra critical, you have a 5k to the front row that's not locked to Counter Blast, and you can now use Soul Blast for the multi rear guard of the opponent's attack. Other than that though, that's it. It doesn't have a skill that counts itself as Vermillion, so even if you cross-right, you don't even get a Persona Right effect, which I found strange. I don't know why you would allow Vanguard Regress to do such a thing, but Vermillion, no. Who's he gonna kill with additional 10k? But again, that's why it's really strange, because if you want to play the Blood in the right deck, sure, you get the Blood Persona Right earlier, but you are gonna have to find a way to put Vermillion in the soul. Whereas if you just have Vermillion in the soul on turn 3, the Blood on turn 4, if on turn 5 you need more kill power, you can then Persona Right, and usually by then your opponent will die. So that's just how I've been testing it. It has been working pretty well for me, but again, like I said, this list is completely up to change. But this is an idea that I kind of enjoy so far, thematically and the way it plays. So yeah, at least for now, that's how I'll be doing it. Our grade 2s right now, and this was a very long grade 3 segment. Our grade 2s will make it quick. Our grade 2s, we played 1 copy of Thunderstorm Dragoon in the right deck. You already know him, so I won't really talk about him much. We played 4 copies of Kashin, who is our new Narukami member for new generations, and 4 Latifa. So for Thunderstorm Dragoon, as you already know, he's our top 7 searcher for any Narukami target, so playing a large number of Narukami is important in the Narukami deck. Surprise! Latifa is still a card that I'm still playing, even though she costs Soul Blast. Latifa is a great way to build the board turn 3, and generally in a format where there's a lot of control now with Chronoscommand and Trazel's Messiah, she basically helps as a way to safety net and build the board. So because of that, I still feel that Latifa is good as a 4-off, although because she competes in Soul, it's a little bit dangerous, so do time her. I know people would rather just play Better Costy Dragon because that's just a way easier answer in terms of, you know, calling your rearguards, but my only reason for not playing Better Costy is because energy, I would want to dedicate that to Spark Spike Dragon, and that's really why I just wouldn't want to play Better Costy in his current deck, and also because he's not Narukami. I get Latifah is also non-Narukami, so the argument also does stand. It is a preference thing. At the end of the day, if you want to prefer to play one grade 2, the triple rare over the other, but Latifah just fits my build because opening the top 5 and being able to call key combo pieces like, you know, Rough Call, and later on, as I'll introduce you to him, Spark Spike from last set, it is too important to pass up. Way too important. Moving on further down our list, and the final grade 2 of this deck is Demonic Dragon Nymph Kashin. Kashin is a new generation Narukami, and she is the same race and type as Seobo back from the old days of Narukami, and she's the female version of Garuda species. You know, Demonic Dragon Berserker Garuda is the same species. And honestly, I know someone will clip me saying this, but I think she's really hot. But the skill is not hot at all. When placed on the rear guard circle, if you have a Vanguard with Narukami, look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 card with Vermillion in its name that is a Narukami or a Eternal Thunderbolt from among them and put them in your hand. If you do, choose a card from your hand, put it into the soul or discard it. I know Aquaforce also has the exact same skill, but for Kashin, yeah, that skill is really a safety net for you to ensure that you can find your copies of the blood, which is very important. You obviously want to see the blood in the deck featured around the blood, but considering that she's a net 0, I don't know. Needing her to be played from hand is also pretty bad because any forms of superior call doesn't really trigger her skill. So again, it does feel quite restrictive, but this is still a welcome inclusion to the deck. Her second skill is when this unit attacks, if you have a grade 3 Vanguard that's Narukami and Vermillion, counterblast 1, this unit gains 10,000 power. At the end of the battle, you bind it. Kashin, while she is technically the second enabler of Rising Phoenix alongside Rough Cull, you will notice that by binding Kashin, there is no way Kashin can come back. There is no way for Kashin to draw, and that's just terrible. I'm gonna be honest, it's just terrible. Rough Cull, at least he made this whole bind enabling the entire core of his identity, whereas Kashin is half the time struggling to be a searcher and the other half struggling to be an enabler. I don't know why they would print a Narukami card that is so confusing. You can tell very clearly there's certain things they wanted in this support, but there are just some roads they were just not willing to walk, which is disappointing. I do hope in the future, and I will talk about this at the end of the video, that they print Narukami cards that actually support the blood fully in its agenda. This one just feels really half-hearted. But I still have the hots for her. I think she's really hot, and I will be buying the F out of her when it is cheaper. But again, channel memberships are $27. Help me afford them. Our grade 1s in this deck, obviously we have Red River Dragoon in the right deck. You already know him, but you know, I'm not going to cover him. Just check the previous Vermillion video, it will save me a lot of time. The rest of the grade 1s, we played 2 copies of Tensha Steed for his skill to be discarded to move into Soul. For Rising Phoenix, because Rising Phoenix is the main multi-attack beat stick, because it comes back when your units are bound, then you Soul +1 and call it. It's pretty good, it works with Rough Cull and Kashin technically. Spark Spike, who also is a new generation Narukami. He gives the skill that the unit in front of him, as long as the unit is same column as him, as long as you are Narukami, gains 5,000 power. And if your Vanguard's attack has hit 2 or more times this turn, it gains 10,000 instead of 5,000. In that way, it ensures that you can early rush with Narukami, but also your multi-attacks with Rising Phoenix, who is a weak beat stick, also gain more power. Spark Spike also has the skill that when it boosts, if your Vanguard's attack hit 2 or more times this turn, EB3, draw a card. So it's technically a mini gun cycler, but it does require your Vanguard to hit. So just keep that in mind. And of course for Perfect Guard. And last but not least, the grade 0s. The grade 0s we play, obviously our Spark Kid Dragoon, he's still here from previously. It's just nice to play an Narukami starter, so I would still play him. We play 4 effect draws. I think effect draws are important now more than ever because you really need to draw your pieces and you don't really care about critical because your Vanguard picks damage and it's generally alright. For heal, we need to stay alive. For effect crit, because we generally need the skill to move into the soul. Soul is very important for this deck. 3 more crit. And then of course Draveda, because restanding your Vanguard is always very good. And yeah, that will wrap up my list for Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion, the blood in DivineZ. I think my conclusions are going to be quite tragic, but at the same time, I do want to keep it positive because I still feel today is a happy day, even though this is the day that the blood commits suicide. I think the pros of this deck is that the deck definitely now has a end goal it wants to play towards. Unlike previously where it was just looping Persona and having a lot of counters conflict with Vermillion as well as Rough Cull in the previous format in DZ BTO5. Right now, having the blood take over using Soul is really effective. It gives you a way to not play into that, that cost competition. But on the other hand, it gives you a really weird conundrum with all your Soul users. For example, Latifa, a card that historically, since Vermillion's inception in Standard, very important, right? But now a lot of that is being thrown out the window. It is a time of great change for Vermillion because the deck is still trying to retain its multiple identities. It's trying to both be a beatdown deck, it's trying to be a combo deck, and in a format where people generally have their identities sorted out, like Chronoscommand is a, Blade Master on legs, you have stuff like Glory Maelstrom who can do 8 attacks very easily. Like, all this is very important, but Vermillion still seems to be trying to ask itself the fundamental questions of life, which is, what am I doing? And frankly, I don't think I can answer that for him. The deck at its core right now really needs ways to plus. Above all, it needs to plus. I know previously I said the hand size doesn't really matter, but you need to sustain the aggression, which Vermillion cannot. And I think that's a really big problem. I also think the way the deck builds its boards is very important. I know Battle Costing Dragon is an option, but it costing energy really competes with Spark Spine, which mainly makes me ask myself why you would print conflicting support. Ultimately, I think the conclusion for this deck is simple. There is still much more to be told. There's definitely more cards on the way for Narukami, and that would potentially be in the next CCE set or even a second promotional card. But ultimately, the fact that we have the blood is already something to be proud of because, people thought this game would die and it didn't die yet. Yeah. But also, I do really wish that Narukami can make a bounce back from here. I think so far it's been really sad that Narukami in Standard has always just been a laughing joke. If you visit Fuzzy Paradox, there's only like one top, and that was from 1 week where the guy just brought a fully out-of-box Vermillion and won accidentally or something. Like, his list is just really out-of-box. Vermillion has aged really badly in the sense that a lot of things it wants to do at different points in time, it's outshadowed. Gandiva, Varga, Overlord, and now again Gandiva and Overlord. It's really sad, and I really do hope that Narukami can play out his box just through one more support, because very frankly this deck really has potential. It has unique aspects, it has hard removal which can counter Eva, a deck which many people can't counter unless they fight differently, but it is so upsetting that especially for cards like Kashin, you could really tell that they were not willing to go all the way to make it a playable or at least strong deck to fight this meta. The fact that you print a crit for the blood but make it go second is just really weird. Like, why would you do that? The crit doesn't even matter because if your opponent's at 4 less damage, he's just gonna guard from it anyways. You strike him for 5 damage, you give him a free defensive. I don't get the point. But I think at the end of the day now, it's time to hand it over to the rest of you as well as to the community, because I do think now is the time for people to playtest this deck and to see what conclusions they themselves draw alongside any future support. I made a Rotomizer video not a long time ago, and now he's getting a tournament promo on Thursday. Who would have known, right? But I think these kind of things we can really look forward to, and it's exciting to me. But also, my heart still longs for Platina Ezel. I do really hope eventually we get that guy. And Platina, please, for the love of God, just be a little bit better than the blood, and we will have a great end to the Asia circuit. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all next time. I just want to say this because I have the chance to do so. My next few videos, there will be a mix of DZ BTO 6 videos as well as some other things I still want to cover. I will be uploading my Kuro opening because I managed to get a box of that with a guest star as well. And I also want to review one last deck for Lyrical Monasterio, just to fulfill my contractual obligation to say I did some lyrical, even though my lyrical videos just don't do very well. I won't be doing any V series videos for the time being after my Eradicators videos, mostly because I don't want you guys just don't really watch that for the time being, and B, I do want to wait for the upcoming stream to see what they'll do next with V series. But for now, I'm just going to try and release as much content as I can, especially for the decks I really want to talk about in 06. Decks like Dragonic Overlord, which really deserve coverage because holy shit, this shit is insane. And once I finish my testing in full, you will get that video. Of course, I will cover other decks in DivineZ BTO6, so do give me some time, because you know it needs time to be researched and for me to do all the videos and to upload them in a orderly schedule. Yeah, so that's really about it. Thank you all so much for watching. You know, speaking about the blood, you know, the blood is a deck that, you know, is where Vermillion ends his life, and about a few days ago I also found out that one of my friends ended his life. So again, if you guys are going through anything, please speak out. There are people who love and care for you, not like Kashin. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care. Love you.